His reviews will get you further than the film will ever go. If you give him just a moment of your time, he'll let you know which movies rock, which movies stink, which movies shouldn't have been released. Say hello to Confused Matthew.
I saw this movie for the first time when I was about 9 years old, and I loved it. The problem is, I was 9, and all I knew at the time was that Batman was doing things in a movie, and it was really cool to watch. So my very first reaction to the film was, well, I'm not really sure what just happened in that movie, but Batman and Joker fought, so yay. And then an interesting thing occurred. I consistently liked this movie less and less every year I got older. So as I became more and more aware of things, this movie really started to lose a lot of its superficial novelty, and by the time I was in my mid-teens, I didn't like this movie at all. It's one of very few classic entertainment films that I grew up with that I didn't continue to love into my adult years. It's just not about anything. I'll say this for the original Batman film, however. God bless them, they tried. This was Hollywood's first attempt at making a mature Batman installment for the screen, and at the time, the production team was in even more of a difficult spot than the Christopher Nolan films were when they reinvented the franchise. Nolan was remaking an already classic and successful film series, and by that I mean the first two. So you had that hurdle to get over of people understandably holding this to the standards of the first two films. But before the Tim Burton series, the only Batman that most people were aware of was the Batman comedy series. So you're asking people to watch something that they mostly associate with joking around and take that seriously. That's difficult to do, and in that respect, they did it with great success. While the Christopher Nolan franchise was inspired by the Frank Miller and post-Frank Miller Batman series, the Burton franchise was more or less based on the Bob Kane era. So it was still a dark and serious film, but this is more of a comic book world than the real, more grittier world of the Nolan films, which is perfectly fine, except for the fact that nothing at all interesting happens in this comic book world. The best thing about Batman, by far, is Batman. I wasn't aware enough at the time of the film's release to get involved with the controversy of Michael Keaton playing Batman, but people were really dead set against that casting decision. This is something that has happened numerous times in the later films. No one thought Heath Ledger would ever play a great Joker. No one thought Anne Hathaway could do a passable Catwoman. And all of these things have been consistently proven wrong. Michael Keaton gave a great interpretation of both Bruce Wayne and Batman. In the Nolan films, Bruce Wayne created Batman as a symbol of hope and justice. When he battled crime, he was really battling the fear and lethargy of the city. But when Keaton's Batman goes out to fight crime, he actually isn't fighting crime at all. What he is really fighting is his own personal demons, and that was tremendously effective. Bruce doesn't even have to say much for us to get an idea of who he is. We learn this from what he surrounds himself with. Very gothic and weird items that seem to represent his own confused and bizarre mental state. Nolan's Bruce Wayne became Batman because the city needed it. Tim Burton's Bruce Wayne became Batman because he needed it. So you have one Batman that represents a symbol of hope in Gotham, and another Batman who represents the man's own personal demons. Now, these are two completely different takes on the same character, and I'm not going to say which one's better. This one's better. I'll just come out and say it. Taking these characters in complete isolation from the films, Keaton's Batman is a better Batman. He has a confidence in what he does that thrills me in a way no character ever has. When he walks into a room, the fight is already over, and he knows it. He just hasn't done it yet. And when he acts as Batman, you can tell that this is all the result of the man's psychology, rather than a carefully orchestrated plan he came up with. That's not to say that Bale's Batman is bad or that his character's building of Batman was ineffective, but as a character, Bale's Batman is more about what he represents, but Keaton's Batman is the freaking Batman. Now, with all this talk about deep character study and a character's complex psychological state, it may sound like this character is really outstanding. But he's not. The only reason you think that is because characters are the only thing this movie has to offer. And that sums up the fundamental problem with this film. It has all characters and no story. Don't get me wrong, the characters are good when they work, but making a film that only has characters and no story is like creating a beautiful chandelier without a house to put it in. You need a story to make those characters come to life and do something that makes you care. Batman doesn't have that, and as a result, I feel that you can't even really watch this movie. You can only look at it. It consists of one interesting character randomly doing things alongside other characters that are randomly doing things until the movie ends. There's no real theme here, no story, and that has a lot to do with what they did with the Joker. There's been some debate since The Dark Knight as to which of these two Jokers is the better Joker. And I'll say this. I'm not at all impressed with this character. He has absolutely no motivation, but it's not like Heath Ledger's Joker where there was a method to his randomness in his attempts to show Gotham how pathetic their attempts to control things are. This Joker is random in a crappy, unwritten way. I don't even know what he wants. His only motivation seems to be to steal the spotlight from Batman. Is that really what we're supposed to care about in this film? A villain who's doing nothing but being an attention whore? Really? Heath Ledger's Joker could be whimsical and sadistically funny, but he could also be chilling and intimidating. Hell, even Mark Hamill's Joker wasn't just acting like a buffoon the whole time. He had a wide range of emotions, and he could scare the hell out of you. There is never anything intimidating or scary about Jack Nicholson's Joker. Truth be told, I actually find him kind of obnoxious. And I'm sorry, but Jack Nicholson's performance here doesn't impress me at all. At the time of the casting, they were throwing names around like Robin Williams to potentially play this role. And you know why? Because physical comedy isn't that hard to do, and that's all this role is. Just Jack Nicholson jumping around, waving his hands around, and laughing like he's out of breath. I'm sorry, but that's not hard. Anyone can play that role. In fact, in Batman Forever, you had two actors just repeating his performance because his performance isn't that hard to repeat. I'm sorry, you can't just have the Joker flitting around the whole time and expect us to care. You need a character to get us interested in all this. You need good motivations. What does the Joker even want in this film?
What do you want?
My face on the $1 bill.
Wow, you really could have just made him say anything there, couldn't you? What do you want? Coat hangers. Yeah. That's weird. I'm sorry, but I'm not impressed. And the worst part is that the filmmakers got so carried away with Nicholson's performance that eventually he just takes over the whole movie. So all that good stuff I said about the Batman character gets completely overshadowed by all this obnoxious nothing. They actually could have called this movie The Joker and it would have been a fair title. This is a problem straight through to the finale. I'm actually still confused as to how this is even a finale. They get up to the bell tower and the Joker tries to escape. But there's no master plan he has up there to destroy Gotham or anything. This is just another escape attempt. So what does he or Batman have to gain or lose if he is or is not stopped at this particular moment? And where did all those henchmen come from? I didn't see him go up there. Were they just hanging around? The fuck? This whole movie is just structured in a really crappy way, and it isn't about anything other than Batman doing Batman things and the Joker being obnoxious in every scene. The supporting cast doesn't help. Alfred is played very well, but doesn't contribute much other than another warm body to occupy the film's screen time and stupidly bring Vicky Vale to the Batcave. And you know the two guys in the background that look like Billy D. Williams and a short bald guy? Well, you probably didn't know this, but those are actually supposed to be characters. I would say that Billy Dee plays Harvey Dent and that the short bald guy plays Commissioner Gordon, but that would almost be rhetorical. They didn't do anything. Lastly, we have Vicky Vale, one of the worst, most obnoxious characters ever to be in a Batman movie. She makes the first Rachel Dawes look downright tolerable. They could have replaced this character with a store window dummy with a blonde wig on it and just had Batman save it a million times. She contributes nothing to the film. All this woman ever does is scream. Shut up, please. Batman is an example of what happens when you focus entirely on style and give no thought to substance. And over the years, even some of the film's creators have looked back and realized that it wasn't the great movie that it could have been. Tim Burton once said of the film in retrospect, "I like parts of it, but the whole movie is mainly boring to me. It's okay, but it was more of a cultural phenomenon than a great movie." And he's absolutely right. I think the reason everyone thought this movie was great is simply because we never had another serious Batman film to compare it to. And to the film's credit, we probably wouldn't have ever had a serious Batman film had it not been for the ground that they broke. But still, it's like everyone thought Batman was great because it was the only game in town and all the films got progressively worse. But then the Dark Knight series came along and everyone was like, oh, that's a Batman film. Overall, Tim Burton's Batman is not worthless. It's got great atmosphere, some pretty good scenes, and more than anything, a great character. But a film cannot live on character alone. You need a good story to make those characters come together. And for that reason, Batman is certainly a good effort, but falls far short of greatness.